Hello YouTube, this is Sam Gerrans from Qur'an.com. Today is Monday the 29th of April 2019 and I'm out for one of my daily constitutionals in my hometown, or my now hometown of Kazan, which is just getting over the winter, and it's about time, I have to say. Anyway, I'll just show you something so you can see what it looks like. It's probably not how you imagine Russia, but this bit of it is extremely nice. Anyway, it's just a very short video. I may not even post this, but this is really me sort of ruminating as I walk, and it's to do with how much time we've got. Because this life, I don't know about you, but certainly for me, it gets pretty irksome, and quite honestly, you find yourself wanting the garden more and more, and so on. But it can all seem very far away. It can all seem very abstract, and yet that is the reality. What we're in now is the enjoyment of delusion, as the Qur'an calls it, and or not enjoyment of delusion, depending on how you stand on it. But what I was thinking was, if I knew for an absolute fact, let's say that I had 20 years, okay? Let's just say, what difference would that make? I mean, would it make a difference? Perhaps it would make a difference. You'd start checking off the days, wouldn't you? I mean, how much more would you cram into your days, knowing that, I mean, I don't know about you, but I certainly misspent quite a lot of my life, and got quite a lot to make up for, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to do that. But if you knew for a fact that you had 20 years, would it change the way that you live? Or for a fact that you had, 5 years, or whatever it is, pick a number, it doesn't really matter what it is. But if you knew for an absolute fact that was it, that was your, the Qur'an talks about a known term, and we all have one. Our birth and our deaths that are written, they are, they're already decided. So, in a way, not knowing is it's a double-edged sword. Not knowing means that you don't know, and in some ways it makes it more abstract. But if you did know for an absolute fact that on Tuesday the 30th of June, 2057 or whatever it is, that was it. I don't know if it would be a benefit to any of us. What is true is that, in my case, I'm 52. I'm going to be 52 this year, God willing. I'm over halfway. I may be 80%, 90%, 95%, 99.6%. Who knows of the way? But all I can say is that from the more real that the akhirah, the life to come, or what my grandmother used to call the fuller life, the more real that becomes to me, the less I'm just going to be run into it by a jogger. No, managed to avoid that one. The more focused I am personally on it, and so it doesn't matter how long we've got. It matters what you do with what you've got. I would say that, I couldn't say it's never too late to repent, because we have the example of Fir'aun, who only repented when he saw death. But up until that point, you can turn it around by God's grace. You can perform tawbah. You can repent. You can turn away from what you were doing before and turn towards something new, and commit to it, and stop serving the shaitan. And this whole system pretty much wrapped up, and make the decision to follow God alone. And it's a price to pay, your loss of friends, and so on, and the misunderstanding of family members, and all of that. But just think of it. I'm rambling a little bit, but there's another part in the Qur'an where it enumerates all the various, men of God and women of God as well. And it says this is your community. So if you feel somewhat estranged from it all, and as though this world doesn't make sense, join the club. It does make sense. It's because you're not built, you don't have the shaitanic DNA. That's why you don't like it, you see. Because the shaitan, I'm jumping around, but it says elsewhere, I'm afraid I didn't prepare for this. I don't have the references, although I'll see if I can find them before I post this. But the shaitan has his allies, and there are those people for whom this world seems to do very well, but it all fits into place for them, and they're attuned to it. They're absolutely attuned to it, and they feel very happy in it, and they don't want to leave it, not ever, but they're going to, and so are we. So it's really a matter of what kind of reception you want. And the Quranic terminology is the entrance. What kind of entrance you want. And we read that for those who prepare at this time, for that time, they can expect the fairest of entrances, and we're all going to enter into the eternal reality, and there's no avoiding it, none whatsoever. And I think that certain people, an example would be Trump. This isn't a political statement, but I've heard Trump talk about his life, and there was a point at which in his life he basically decided that this life was pretty much all there is, and he's going to go for it, and that's what he's done. And he's a man of this world. There's no doubting that one. And again, this isn't a political statement. I think all politics is just a charade. But another person for whom that was true was, I read Steve Jobs' biography. The biography which he sanctioned. I don't remember the name of the writer at the moment, but there was a point in Steve Jobs' life where he basically decided that he didn't believe in God, not really, and he was consistent in that. That's the point that I'm getting to. He was consistent in it, and he took what this world could give him, and then he lost it all. And we're all going, if you've seen some of my previous videos, we're all going to what I call the zinger. And this isn't, these aren't fear tactics. This isn't a conspiracy theory that Sam Gerrans has dreamt up. As I said before, go to your local graveyard, and see your local graveyard for details, because that's where we're all going. There's absolutely no way out of this one. And in the Qur'an we read that the plan of the shaitan is weak, and this is its weak point. This is its the point at which it cannot wriggle out of this one. And I don't want to wriggle out of this one. I want to go to the garden, God willing. And it was true in times gone by that cognizance of the garden, some sort of recognition of what my grandmother, and she wasn't a religious person, but what she would have called in her sort of late Victorian or turn of the century kind of phrase, the full of life. Where do you hear anybody talk about that? The full of life in any real seriousness today? It's all about this life. Well, it isn't all about this life, because people die every day, every single day. There's somebody dying right now. There is somebody, wherever it is, on their deathbed, or in a car accident, or whatever it is, getting killed by drones or falling down a well, whatever it is, there are thousands of people who are going to die today, thousands and thousands of them. And one day, it'll be us. It's inescapable. So I think, unlike Steve Jobs and Trump, I kind of went through a similar process, but came to a different set of conclusions, where for me it was meeting billionaires and working with them. They weren't my buddies or anything, but I happened to have been quite, spent a lot of time around some materially extremely rich people. I mean, billions upon billions. And just, I wouldn't say they were miserable exactly or had a meaningless existence. Well, no, I would say they had a meaningless existence from my perspective. They were happy with it. That was it. Within their philosophical terms of reference, they were happy with it, but I couldn't have been, because death would have been sitting there at the table like a bad smell in a lift all the time, and I can't ignore that. And I think that people like Trump, people like Steve Jobs, there's some button somewhere, there's some switch that one switches, and it is a choice. But what I'm trying to say is, if you believe in God and the last day, then invest in it. It's nothing to do with money. It doesn't. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about just what you choose to do with your time, the choices that you make, the friendships that you make, the study that you do, what you eat, what you think about. I go back to something I mentioned before, and I just use it as it's just sort of popular meme at the moment, but Bitcoin, if you had known that Bitcoin, if you'd known where Bitcoin was going to go, and maybe will go, who knows, who cares, in the future, but when it was like 20 cents for one, how many would you have bought if you'd known that? And here we are in a situation where we absolutely know, from absolute fact, that we're going to cross over that threshold, and that we will take with us, as it were, the blockchain receipts of our deeds, where they will be converted there on the righteous and absolutely true scales into the eternal currency. It might seem a little crass, but this is an investment. It is an investment, and I think that for people like, so we're just getting a blast of Russian here. For people like Donald Trump, he made a decision. He made an investment decision. He was going to invest in this life, and he was going to take exactly what it had to give him. And Steve Jobs made that similar kind of decision, and I've made that decision, and you have to make that decision. We all fundamentally, even if we fudge the decision, we're making a non-decision is a decision not to make a decision is a decision. We're accountable for where we stand on that, and that's why the Qur'an is so emphatic about belief, because it can seem a little arbitrary, but it isn't arbitrary. This is the fundamental core decision that each cognizant, each conscious soul has to make, and it really is to do with where you stand on this life and where you stand on what happens after it. And to wrap this up, it's about where you invest, and in the same way as Donald Trump didn't know how long he was going to have, still doesn't, and the same is, but now we know that Steve Jobs, for example, he does know, and I don't know what his final moments were like, but I've personally been not too far from death in the last year or two, so I do know, and in the darkest moments, if you want my personal experience, you won't regret serving God. That's all for now. If you're listening on YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Qur'an free using the button in the top right hand corner, or buy the hard copy there at 10% less than on Amazon. I also encourage you to sign up for the Qur'anite Plus newsletter on the site to get occasional micro updates. You can download the audio from my YouTube videos to your mobile device using the links in the drop down below. I recommend meetquranites.com to connect with other Qur'an alone believers. Like if you like, comment if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short, eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.